She was hailed as the next Steve Jobs. At 26, she was celebrated as the world's youngest self-made female billionaire, worth about $4.5 billion, at least on paper. Her company promised something close to magic, to run hundreds of medical tests from a single drop of blood and reinvent healthcare forever. Presidents praised her. Investors threw fortunes at her. Her face stared out from the cover of every business magazine that mattered. There was just one problem. The technology at the very center of it all never actually worked. This is the story of Theranos, and of how a Stanford dropout in a black turtleneck built a $9 billion empire on a promise she could not keep. I am Onyx, and this is Fortune and Ruin TV, where we take you inside the true stories of money, power, and collapse. Today, the blood-testing startup that fooled Silicon Valley, Washington, and Wall Street all at the same time. In 2003, a 19-year-old named Elizabeth Holmes dropped out of Stanford University to chase a single, seductive idea. She was afraid of needles, and she imagined a world where no one would ever need a big, painful blood draw again. Instead, one tiny prick of a finger, a single drop of blood, could be tested for hundreds of conditions, cheaply and almost instantly, right inside your local pharmacy. She named the company Theranos, a blend of the words therapy and diagnosis, and she sold that vision better than almost anyone in the history of Silicon Valley. Holmes was magnetic. She wore black turtlenecks, consciously modeled on her idol Steve Jobs, and she spoke in an unusually deep, deliberate voice. She told a story investors desperately wanted to believe, that a young woman had quietly cracked a problem the entire medical industry had somehow missed. Theranos claimed its machine, later called the Edison, could run over 200 different tests from that one small drop of blood. And the money followed the story. Over the years, Theranos raised more than $700 million from private investors. By 2014, the company was valued at around $9 billion, and Holmes owned roughly half of it. She was crowned a visionary, a genius, the future of medicine wearing a lab coat. If a story like this grips you, the dizzying rise that comes right before the fall, then subscribe to Fortune and Ruin TV, because it is the single best way to keep these deep dives coming. What made Theranos so convincing was not only Holmes herself, but the people she gathered to stand behind her. She assembled one of the most intimidating boards of directors in modern corporate history. Former secretaries of state, a former secretary of defense, retired senators, and decorated generals. It was a towering wall of power and prestige. But look closely at who was almost entirely missing from that board. Medical experts, working scientists, people who actually understood blood diagnostics. The board was built to project credibility, not to question the science. That credibility opened doors that should have stayed shut. In 2013, Theranos announced a sweeping partnership with Walgreens to place its blood testing centers inside stores across the country. Ordinary people would soon walk into a pharmacy, give a finger prick of blood, and trust Theranos with results that could shape life and death decisions. The grocery giant Safeway signed on too, pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into a planned rollout. But here is what the public did not know. Behind the sleek marketing, the technology simply did not work the way Holmes claimed it did. Former employees later told investigators that the Edison devices were unreliable and that they produced wildly inconsistent results. So to keep up appearances, Theranos secretly ran the vast majority of its tests not on its own revolutionary machine, but on modified commercial analyzers built by other companies, the very equipment Holmes said she was replacing. And to force a tiny fingerprick sample to work on those standard machines, the blood was often diluted, which could distort the results even further. Think about what that actually meant. Real patients were getting real medical results, about cancer, about pregnancy, about whether they were sick, from a system the company had reason to know was deeply flawed. Some patients received alarming, inaccurate results. Inside the company, prosecutors would later argue, a culture of secrecy and fear kept employees from ever speaking up. At the center of that culture was Ramesh Balwani, known as Sonny, the company's president, and, in secret, Holmes's boyfriend. We are about to reach the unraveling, and it is a genuine reckoning, but quickly, if you are finding this valuable, hitting that subscribe button truly helps us keep digging into the stories the headlines rushed past. The truth began leaking out from the inside. A handful of young employees grew alarmed at what they were seeing in the lab. Among them was Tyler Schultz, the grandson of board member George Schultz, and a colleague named Erica Tune, who both risked their careers to raise the alarm. And in October 2015, an investigative reporter at the Wall Street Journal named John Carreyrou published a bombshell. His reporting alleged that Theranos' technology did not work as promised, and that the company was quietly leaning on those other machines. Theranos and Holmes pushed back hard, denying the reporting and threatening legal action, but the dam had already broken. Once regulators looked closely, the picture only grew worse. Federal health inspectors examined the Theranos lab and found serious problems, concluding it posed what they called immediate jeopardy to patient health and safety. In 2016, regulators revoked the lab's license and banned Holmes from owning or operating a medical laboratory for 2 years. The company was forced to void or correct tens of thousands of blood test results. From there, the collapse became total. In March 2018, the Securities and Exchange Commission charged Holmes and Balwani with what it called a massive, years-long fraud. The agency accused them of raising hundreds of millions of dollars by deceiving investors about the technology, the finances, and the business itself. Holmes settled with the SEC without admitting or denying the allegations, paid a $500,000 penalty, and gave up her control of the company. She was also barred from serving as an officer or director of a public company for 10 years. By September 2018, Theranos, once worth $9 billion, was formally dissolved. There was nothing left. But the government was not finished. Federal prosecutors brought criminal charges, and in 2021, Elizabeth Holmes went on trial for fraud in a federal courthouse in San Jose, in the very heart of the Silicon Valley she had once conquered. On January 3, 2022, the jury delivered its verdict. Holmes was found guilty on 4 counts of defrauding investors, 3 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy. In November 2022, a judge sentenced her to more than 11 years in federal prison. Sunny Balwani was tried separately, convicted on all 12 counts against him, and sentenced to nearly 13 years. In 2023, Elizabeth Holmes, once the celebrated face of the future of medicine, reported to a federal prison in Texas to begin serving her sentence. Step back from the courtrooms and the billions, and the Theranos story asks one deeply uncomfortable question. How did so many powerful, intelligent people, investors, statesmen, journalists, and retailers, get fooled for so long? The answer is that Holmes understood something genuinely dangerous. People do not only invest in technology, they invest in a story. And she told a beautiful one, a young idealist changing the world. A story too inspiring to interrogate too closely. By the time anyone demanded to see the machine truly work, billions had already been raised, and real patients had already trusted their blood to a promise. Theranos did not fail because the science was merely hard, though it was. It failed because the story sprinted miles ahead of the truth, and nobody with the power to stop it wanted to be the one to say the emperor had no clothes. Thanks for watching to the end. If you made it this far, you are exactly the kind of person this channel is built for. Check out our other deep dives into the empires built on lies. And if you want more true stories of money, power, and collapse, subscribe to Fortune and Ruin TV. We will see you in the next one.